Have you ever wondered why some women linger in our memories long after they are gone? Not because they were the loudest, not because they were the most dramatic, and not even because they were the kindest, but because of the way they carried themselves, the way they knew how to draw a line with grace. It is the quiet strength that stays with us. The moment she says no, not in anger, not in coldness, but with clarity. That kind of woman leaves a mark that time cannot erase. Before we go further, take one moment and breathe. Notice your heart right now. Notice how your body remembers every moment you stayed when you should have walked away. Notice the places where your heart grew tired. Our hearts hold memory far deeper than our minds do. And that is why this conversation matters. The human heart is a strange and beautiful mystery. It remembers the person who respected themselves. It remembers the woman who stood firm, who refused to be swallowed by someone else's needs. The heart remembers the one who stayed whole. Love, when it is true, does not fade as the seasons change. It deepens. It grows wiser. It becomes quieter but more powerful. When love matures, it no longer thrives on intensity, on passion that burns and disappears. It thrives on truth. And truth requires boundaries. Saying no is not rejection. It is recognition. Recognition of your value. Recognition of what your heart can hold and what it cannot. And above all, recognition of the kind of love you believe you are worthy of. Many women learn this lesson the hardest way, through exhaustion. It begins beautifully, always. A woman cares naturally. She thinks of the man she loves, his needs, his feelings, his struggles. At first it feels nurturing. It feels right. It feels like love in its purest form. And so she gives, and gives, and gives again, until she becomes the one holding everything. She begins cooking, planning, listening, fixing. She becomes the emotional anchor, the guide, the comfort, the solution. She becomes the one who steadies everything, even when she herself is shaking. And then one day something quiet but devastating happens. She disappears, not all at once, but piece by piece. Her laughter becomes softer. Her dreams slowly move to the back of the shelf. Her joy becomes something she checks on, occasionally instead of something she lives in. And the saddest part is, she doesn't even notice it happening, because she is doing it in the name of love. But here is a truth many hearts learn too late. Love was never meant to turn you into his mother. Love does not ask you to raise a grown man. Love does not require you to disappear so that someone else can feel comfortable. Because when you begin to parent a partner, you stop being his equal. The balance shifts, the energy twists, and he begins to depend on you, not because he cherishes you, but because you have become convenient. He stops trying. He stops reaching. He stops valuing what once moved him. A man cannot admire what he does not have to work for. And the more you do to earn his love, the less he sees your worth. But here is where the story changes. A woman who understands her own worth knows when to step back. Not out of punishment, not out of revenge, but because she understands something profound. If you love him, let him carry his own weight. Let him take responsibility for his emotions, his mistakes, his growth. Let him face his challenges. Let him rise or fall by his own actions. Because a man who becomes stronger because you stepped back will never forget you. You become the turning point in his life, the one who made him look in the mirror and choose to become better. But the woman who does everything becomes forgettable, not because she lacks value, but because she has given away too much of herself. Ask yourself gently, have I been a partner or have I been a parent? Does my love encourage strength or does it enable dependency? Because love is not about control. It is about trust, and trust requires space. And then there is another truth that goes deeper than the body, deeper than touch, deeper than physical closeness. Your body is not proof of love. There are women who give too, quickly because they fear they might lose the man if they wait. Women who rush because they believe opportunity may not come again. The fear of loneliness can make the heart accept what the soul is not ready for. But love that asks you to rush is not love. It is hunger dressed as affection. The right man will never ask you to give more than your heart is ready to offer. If your heart says not yet and he walks away, let him go. His love was not love. It was desire. And desire without respect cannot last. But if he stays, if he honors your pace, if he does not demand what your heart is not ready to give, this is where real love begins to grow. in patience, in presence, in steadiness. A man in love is not in a hurry. A man in love is not threatened by your boundaries. A man in love wants your soul, not just your skin. Ask yourself quietly, does he love my presence or does he love my heart? Because the answer to that question changes everything. Saying no is not the closing of a door. It is the protecting of your world. It is the moment you begin to choose the kind of love that doesn't break you. And as we continue, we will go even deeper into this journey, into what it means to love without losing yourself. Because when you begin to parent a partner, you stop being his equal. The balance shifts, the energy twists, and he begins to depend on you, not because he cherishes you, but because you have become convenient. He stops trying. He stops reaching. He stops valuing what once moved him. A man cannot admire what he does not have to work for. And the more you do to earn his love, the less he sees your worth. But here is where the story changes. A woman who understands her own worth knows when to step back. Not out of punishment, not out of revenge, but because she understands something profound. If you love him, let him carry his own weight. Let him take responsibility for his emotions, his mistakes, his growth. Let him face his challenges. Let him rise or fall by his own actions. Because a man who becomes stronger because you stepped back will never forget you. You become the turning point in his life, the one who made him look in the mirror and choose to become better. But the woman who does everything becomes forgettable, not because she lacks value, but because she has given away too much of herself. Ask yourself gently, have I been a partner or have I been a parent? Does my love encourage strength or does it enable dependency? Because love is not about control. It is about trust, and trust requires space. And then there is another truth that goes deeper than the body, deeper than touch, deeper than physical closeness. Your body is not proof of love. There are women who give too, quickly because they fear they might lose the man if they wait. Women who rush because they believe opportunity may not come again. The fear of loneliness can make the heart accept what the soul is not ready for. But love that asks you to rush is not love. It is hunger dressed as affection. The right man will never ask you to give more than your heart is ready to offer. If your heart says not yet and he walks away, let him go. His love was not love. It was desire. And desire without respect cannot last. But if he stays, if he honors your pace, if he does not demand what your heart is not ready to give, this is where real love begins to grow. In patience, in presence, in steadiness. A man in love is not in a hurry. A man in love is not threatened by your boundaries. A man in love wants your soul, not just your skin. Ask yourself quietly, does he love my presence or does he love my heart? Because the answer to that question changes everything. Saying no is not the closing of a door. It is the protecting of your world. It is the moment you begin to choose the kind of love that doesn't break you. And as we continue, we will go even deeper into this journey, into what it means to love without losing yourself. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that love, to be real, must coexist with strength. Not strength that hardens the heart or closes it off, but a quiet inner strength that protects the soul from disappearing inside someone else's world. This realization often arrives slowly. It may begin with a question whispered inside your own chest, something like, why do I feel tired instead of cherished? Why do I feel more anxious than adored? Why am I giving more than I am receiving? You may not speak these questions out loud. You may not even want to admit them at first. Because to admit them is to acknowledge something fragile that your heart has been giving in hopes of being seen. But somehow, you have become invisible in the process. So many women learn how to love deeply, but very few learn how to love without losing themselves. Let us speak honestly. There is a kind of love that drains you. A love in which you are constantly the one apologizing, the one fixing, the one smoothing the edges of everything just to keep peace. You become the emotional caretaker, the peacemaker, the one carrying the emotional weight of two people. And at first, you may tell yourself that this is maturity, that it is patience, that it is devotion. But love that makes only one person grow smaller is not love. It is sacrifice mistaken for connection. There are men who will expect you to carry the emotional labor of the relationship, because someone else always has. Because they have never learned to take responsibility for their own wounds, their own healing, their own growth. They expect you to be healer, nurturer, rescuer, and stabilizer all at once. But listen carefully. You were not created to be a sanctuary for someone who refuses to build their own peace. Your heart was not designed to endure emotional storms that someone else refuses to calm. If you play the role of healer too long, you will become the one who is injured. This is why saying no is sacred. Not the angry no, not the fearful no, but the calm, grounded no that says, I will not lose myself for love. This kind of no is not a wall. It is a doorway into a different kind of love, one built on mutual responsibility and emotional maturity. Because a man should not enter your life to depend on you more than he depends on himself. He should enter your life to join you. Two full hearts, not two broken ones trying to patch each other together. This is where respect begins. Respect is born not in the grand moments, but in the daily boundaries you hold. The moment you say, I cannot continue this conversation when voices are raised. I need time to myself today. I will not tolerate being spoken to in that tone. I am not available to fix this for you. You must handle it yourself. These are not acts of rejection. These are acts of self-recognition. And when you speak from this place, everything around you begins to change. The man who loves you will grow. He will rise to meet you. He will step into responsibility, emotional understanding, presence, effort. But the man who only wanted you for convenience, for comfort, for ease, for what you provide, he will call you difficult, distant, cold. He will say your standards are too high. Let him say it. A man who fears the strength of a woman is a man who is not yet strong himself. You do not lower your standards to make love stay. Love that belongs to you will not leave when you say no. And here is a truth that is rarely spoken. A woman who respects herself becomes unforgettable. Not because she tries to be, not because she performs or proves anything, but because she lives from a place of inner wholeness. She does not chase. She does not cling. She does not beg to be chosen. She chooses herself, and in doing so, she teaches others how to love her. This kind of woman is not loud. She is not controlling. She does not need to argue her worth. Her presence speaks it. And here is something many do not understand. You do not lose love when you set boundaries. You simply lose those who were never capable of loving you. When you say, no, I will not carry your emotions for you. No, I will not be the only one trying. No, I will not give parts of myself away just to keep you comfortable. You are not pushing love away. You are making room for love that knows how to stay. Because love that lasts is not built in urgency. It is built in patience. It is built in depth. It is built in shared responsibility. And the woman who knows this no longer fears being alone, because she understands something profound. It is better to sit in silence with your own peace than to share your bed with someone who requires you to shrink. It is better to walk alone with your identity intact than to walk beside someone who does not see you. Your value does not come from being needed. Your value comes from simply being. And the moment you understand that, the entire world feels different. Your breathing changes. Your posture changes. Your presence changes. Your relationships change. Your love changes. Not because you hardened, but because you finally returned to yourself. And now from this place we continue into the deeper layers of love, longing, patience, and emotional wholeness. There is a kind of silence that enters your life when you stop trying to prove your worth, a calm that does not announce itself loudly, but settles slowly, like evening light across a quiet room. This silence is the beginning of coming home to yourself. When you no longer feel the urge to convince someone to love you, to see you, to stay, you reclaim something sacred, your own presence. And yet, reaching this place often begins in the hardest way. Sometimes it begins with heartbreak, sometimes with disappointment, sometimes with the painful realization that the love you poured into someone was not being poured back into you. Not with the same depth, not with the same sincerity, not with the same devotion. There is a moment, often private and silent, where a woman finally whispers to herself, I cannot continue like this. Not out of anger, not out of blame, but out of truth. This is the moment your spirit begins to rise. because love should not require you to abandon your joy in order to maintain peace. Love should not demand that you ignore your needs, silence your voice, or swallow your pain. Love should not require that you abandon yourself to keep someone else. If love asks you to disappear, then it is not love. It is attachment tangled with fear. You are allowed to ask for more. You are allowed to be cherished. You are allowed to be met with effort. You are allowed to be loved with gentleness and depth. The world often teaches women that endurance is devotion, that suffering is loyalty, that holding on no matter what is noble. But love is not something you survive. Love is something you grow in. When you love someone who cannot meet you emotionally, the relationship begins to weaken you. Not because your love is wrong, but because love cannot live where there is no reciprocity. No matter how much you give, love requires two hands building, not one holding everything together. This is why self-respect is the root of every lasting relationship. Self-respect does not make you cold. It makes you clear. Self-respect does not make you distant. It makes you whole. Self-respect does not push love away. It shields love from becoming destructive. When a woman respects herself, she does not ask, "How can I make him stay?" She asks, "Does this love honor who I am?" And when the answer is no, she steps back. Not because she stopped loving, but because she started loving herself too. This stepping back is powerful. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It does not threaten or demand. It simply withdraws where love is not being nourished. This is what teaches a man more than words ever could. Distance reveals truth. If he values you, he will come forward. If he does not, he will fade. Either way, you will finally know. But for many women, this is where fear appears. The fear of being alone. The fear of starting over. The fear of emptiness. The fear of silence. Let us speak honestly. Being alone is not the fear. Being alone with unresolved pain is. But once you begin healing, solitude becomes something else entirely. It becomes spacious, peaceful, alive. It becomes a place where you rediscover the parts of yourself you abandoned. There is a kind of joy that returns when you stop performing for love. The joy of your own laughter, your own voice, your own dreams, your own rhythm. You remember who you were before life taught you to shrink. That girl inside you, the one who was bright, curious, sincere, she has not disappeared. She has only been waiting for you to return to her. And returning to her is how love becomes whole again. Because love is not given to you in another person. Love grows from the way you treat your own soul. A woman who is rooted in herself is a woman who is impossible to replace. Not because she is perfect, not because she is flawless, but because she is present in her own life. She has a life outside of love. She has passions, friendships, memories, purpose. She has a relationship with herself. She does not make any man her entire world because she understands that love is healthiest when it is shared between two complete worlds, not two half-formed ones. This is where admiration begins. A man does not fall in love with a woman who gives up everything for him. He falls in love with a woman who has a life she will not abandon. A woman who protects her joy, values her time, speaks her truth, honors her boundaries, stands firm in her identity. This is the woman who leaves a mark. She is not unforgettable because she tried to be, but because being herself was enough. And here's something many never realize. Softness is not lost when you gain strength. You simply learn where your softness belongs. Your heart becomes a place of welcome, not a place of surrender. Your love becomes intentional, not desperate. Your affection becomes a gift, not something you are afraid will be taken away. And when you love from this place, the love you choose becomes different. You no longer choose partners who take until you collapse, relationships that drain rather than nourish, men who are emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or unstable. You begin to choose depth rather than intensity, peace rather than chaos, steadiness rather than uncertainty, presence rather than promises. You begin to choose love that is symmetrical, the kind of love where both people hold each other, not one person holding everything. This is where love becomes mature, not in age, but in soul. Mature love is not loud. It is not urgent. It is not needy. Mature love is steady. It is patient. It is grounded. It is a love where you do not have to question your place, where your heart does not have to beg to be seen, where your worth is not up for negotiation. This love does not ask you to shrink. It encourages you to expand, and that is the love you deserve. Not someday, not if you earn it, not if you become more, not if you are chosen. You deserve it simply because you exist. And now, from this place of truth, we continue. There is a quiet shift that happens when a woman begins to value herself again. The world may not notice it at first. It may not show in the way she speaks, or even in the way she moves. But something inside her has changed. A kind of steadiness returns to her spirit, a remembering. She begins to understand that love is not measured by how much she can endure. Love is measured by how free she feels within it, and that is the turning point. Because many relationships last not out of love, but out of habit, out of fear, out of the familiarity of having someone there, even if that presence is no longer nourishing. Many hearts remain in places where they are shrinking, because shrinking feels easier than letting go. Because letting go feels like losing something, even when what is being lost is your own joy. But your joy is not a luxury. Your joy is your compass. When you lose it, you lose yourself. So the journey of loving yourself again begins with noticing where your joy has dimmed and choosing one small decision at a time to bring it back. This may mean stepping back from someone who drains your peace. This may mean speaking your truth after years of silence. This may mean returning to the hobbies and passions you abandoned. This may mean relearning what it feels like to be alone without feeling lonely. The world will tell you that loneliness is something to fear, but solitude is not loneliness. Solitude is where you meet yourself again. Think of the moments in your life when you felt most alive. Maybe it was sitting near a window while rain tapped the glass. Maybe it was walking through a quiet street with music in your ears. Maybe it was laughing with a friend who saw you clearly. Maybe it was creating something, a poem, a drawing, a plan for your future. Those moments were not loud. They were not dramatic. They were not dependent on someone else's presence. Those moments came from within you. This is why your life cannot revolve around another person, not even someone you love deeply. Your life must have its own shape, its own colors, its own spaces where your soul can breathe. Because the moment your identity depends on someone else's attention, your peace becomes fragile. Ask yourself gently, when he leaves the room, do I remain whole? When the message is late, does my heart remain steady? When we disagree, do I still feel like myself? If the answer is no, then the relationship is no longer love. It has become dependency. Dependency takes from you. Love strengthens you. Dependency makes you anxious. Love makes you grounded. Dependency silences your voice. Love encourages you to speak. Dependency requires you to shrink. Love invites you to expand. And the most powerful thing you will ever do is learn how to return to yourself without closing your heart to love. You do not have to harden to protect yourself. You do not have to become distant, guarded, or cold. Softness is not your weakness. It is your knowing. Your softness becomes unbreakable when you stand in your truth. Imagine love where you do not have to raise your voice to be heard. You do not have to beg to be valued. You are understood even in your silence. Your heart is not something you must defend. Your dreams are honored, not seen as inconvenient. This is not fantasy. This is the love that meets you when you meet yourself. A man who is capable of true love will not be intimidated by your strength. He will not require you to shrink so he can feel larger. He will not ask you to lose your voice so he can feel heard. He will not need to be rescued from his own emotional storms. He will not fear your boundaries. He will find peace in your self-respect. Because your self-respect tells him that you love from a place of fullness, not need. And love born from fullness lasts, because it does not demand that anyone abandon themselves in the process. So how does a woman return to herself? Not all at once. Not in a dramatic declaration. Not by forcing herself to move on or let go overnight. She returns to herself in the smallest of ways. By noticing what brings her peace. By choosing moments of silence. By listening to her body when it says, "This is too much." By resting. By breathing. By remembering her own laughter. by honoring her own needs without apology, by surrounding herself with people who nourish her spirit, by letting herself feel all of it without shame. Healing does not ask you to be strong every day. Healing asks you to be honest. Honest about what hurts. Honest about what you need. Honest about what you can no longer accept. And once honesty enters your life, everything begins to shift. You stop chasing what does not chase you. You stop explaining yourself to people who do not want to understand. You stop holding on to relationships where your heart cannot breathe. You stop apologizing for your boundaries, your standards, your clarity. Your life becomes less crowded but more meaningful. Less loud but more true. Less chaotic but more peaceful. And in this quiet, something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel yourself again. Not the version shaped by someone else's expectations. Not the version softened to avoid conflict. Not the version who learned to hide her needs. You return to the woman who always existed beneath the layers. The one who is strong without hardness, soft without being erased, loving without losing herself. And from this place, love becomes possible again. Love that nourishes. Love that honors. Love that grows. But most importantly, love that allows you to remain yourself. There comes a moment when everything you have learned, every boundary you have rebuilt, every truth you have reclaimed, gathers into one simple realization. You are allowed to choose yourself, not as an act of selfishness, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of love. Love for your own life, your own peace, your own spirit. Because love that costs you yourself is too expensive. And once you understand this, your entire relationship to love changes. You no longer seek love to fill emptiness. You seek love to share fullness. You no longer attach your identity to who stays or who leaves. You remain whole either way. You no longer silence your needs to keep harmony. You speak clearly because your needs matter. And you no longer fear the loss of love, because you have stopped abandoning yourself. This is the transformation that makes a woman unforgettable. Not because she is difficult, not because she is distant, not because she plays games, but because she is rooted in who she is. A woman who knows herself cannot be replaced. She is not held by fear. She is not guided by insecurity. She is not sustained by validation. She moves through the world with quiet certainty. She knows she is worthy, not because someone tells her she is, but because she can feel it in the way she shows up for herself. Her worth is not negotiable. Her heart is not up for bargain. Her soul is not something to be molded for acceptance. And this is where love becomes real. Because love is not meant to complete you. It is meant to walk with you, side by side, heart to heart, equal to equal. Anything less than that is not love. It is dependency wearing love's clothing. And dependency is what exhausts the soul. So ask yourself quietly, do I feel expanded in this love or do I feel smaller? Do I feel seen or do I feel overlooked? Do I feel safe or do I feel uncertain? Do I feel cherished or do I feel tolerated? Your answers will tell you everything. And if the answers hurt, remember this. You are allowed to choose differently. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that accepted less. You are allowed to release relationships that cost you too much peace. You are allowed to start again, no matter your age, your history, your fears. It is never too late to return to yourself. Healing is not a one-time act. Healing is a series of small choices made every day. Choosing to rest instead of explaining yourself. Choosing silence instead of chasing someone's attention. Choosing to walk away instead of proving your worth. Choosing to trust that what is meant for you will recognize you without you, shrinking, begging, or bending. There is a strength in gentle women that the world often underestimates. The strength to love deeply, the strength to forgive sincerely, the strength to try again even after heartbreak. But this strength becomes unshakable when paired with self-respect. Because a woman who has learned to say no with grace, who has learned to love without losing herself, who has learned to walk away without bitterness, she does not fear love. She chooses it, on her terms, at her pace, in her fullness. She does not rush. She does not cling. She does not compete. She simply is, and the right man will recognize her. He will recognize her not by what she gives, but by who she is. Not by her silence, but by her voice. Not by her sacrifice, but by her presence. He will not love her because she needs him. He will love her because she stands beside him as his equal. This is the love that endures. This is the love that matures. This is the love that grows rather than consumes. A love where conversations are safe, feelings are honored, boundaries are respected, growth is mutual, hearts are free, not chained. A love where you do not lose yourself in the process. Because the greatest love you will ever experience will not be the one that overwhelms you, but the one that lets you remain yourself. So take this truth with you now, softly, like something delicate placed in your palms. You do not have to become smaller to be loved. You do not have to abandon your voice to be understood. You do not have to give your body to keep someone close. You do not have to prove that you are worthy. You already are. You were born with worth. You do not earn it. You do not perform for it. You do not negotiate it. You simply carry it. The woman who understands this becomes timeless. She becomes unforgettable. Not because she is loud, not because she tries, not because she demands attention, but because her presence honors her soul. She knows when to stay. She knows when to step back. She knows when to walk away. And she does all of it with grace. So if this message has found you at the right moment of your life, hold it gently. Let it settle. Let it echo. And perhaps leave a whisper in your heart that sounds like, I am allowed to choose myself. I am worthy of a love that does not break me. I will not shrink anymore. If these words resonated with you, take a moment to share in the comments. What truth are you holding on to now? And if this reminded you of your worth, like this video, share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe for more reflections on love, strength, and the beauty of standing whole. Remember, you do not become unforgettable by being everything to someone. You become unforgettable the moment you choose to remain you.